Today we've got a 69 Corvette customer brought to me to have tuned. His complaint was that it hesitates when it takes off and he wants to make sure it's running as good as it can. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to fire it up and see what it's got for timing. Typically hesitations are low timing or it's got a lean stumble, so we've got to make the thing get fuel quicker. So we're going to find out what it's got for timing and then go from there. When you tune a motor, you always have to start with timing. You got to get the timing right first, then work on air-fuel ratio to idle, and then work on cruise air-fuel ratio, and then work on wide open throttle air ratio, fuel air ratio, and then work on transitions. So first thing is timing. We're going to fire it up and see what it's got. Fired it up. This thing's got 10 degrees timing at idle and it's got 36 degrees total. So with all the weight slung out, this thing shows 36 degrees, which is about where it should be at for a big block Chevrolet. At idle, it only had 10 degrees. Now, I know from experience that anything with anything more than a stock camshaft is going to want more than 10 degrees timing at idle. How do you know what your motor wants for timing at idle? What you do is you have the motor idling and you put timing in it. If the RPM picks up, that's your motor's way of telling you that it wants more timing. If you think about it, why would an engine gain RPM by just adding timing? You're not adding air or fuel, so why does the RPM go up? Well, when you add timing and the RPM goes up, you're starting the combustion process sooner, so it burns more air and fuel, makes a bigger bang, pushes the piston down harder, and the RPM picks up. So that tells you with the timing back at idling low, it's not burning all the air and fuel. When you put timing in it, and the RPM picks up, it's burning more of the air and fuel, so the RPM goes up. So what you do is you put timing in it, the RPM picks up, then you close the throttle blades to lower the RPM back down to where we want to idle. And you keep doing that until it stops gaining RPM. Stock camshafts, mild motors only want 10 to 12 degrees timing at idle. The rowdier the camshaft is, or the lower the compression is, the more timing at idle it will want. I've got lots of motors where the timing is locked out at idle. This motor here, I kept putting timing in it, it kept going up. This thing wants 36 degrees timing, so I'm going to pull the distributor out, lock the timing out, and put it back together. Something else I want you to notice too is, when I first started this car with 10 degrees timing, it had, the air-fuel ratio was in the mid to high 13s. I put timing in it, closed the throttle blades down, and the air-fuel ratio changed to mid to low 13s. I did not touch the idler mixture screws and the air-fuel ratio changed. Think about that. Why is the air-fuel ratio changing when I'm not changing the mixture screws? Well, when I put timing in it, it's burning more air and fuel. The RPM picks up, I close the throttle blades off to make it idle lower. Well, when you close the throttle blades, you're closing off a vacuum leak. That makes the motor pull more fuel from the idle circuit, so it richens up the idle circuit, richens up the air-fuel ratio at idle. So that's why you can't set idler mixture first. You gotta have timing right first, then get the idle air-fuel ratio where you want it to be. Okay, we got the distributor out, and this thing has obviously got an advanced mechanism in it, and we're gonna lock that out, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. Okay, the first step is we gotta knock this roll pin out so we can knock this gear off. Okay, we've got the bottom gear off. This shaft won't pull out without pulling off the tach drive gear. So I'm just gonna fix it here. I was gonna pull it apart to show you, but I'm gonna do it like this. So what we gotta do first is pop the springs off. Oops. Get the washers off. Get these weights off. Okay, then we got to get this off of here. This comes out like this. See this piece here like this? So what we got to do is got to get this nut off. And we're going to spin this around 180 degrees and put it back in this slot and tighten it back down. That way the timing will be locked out. Okay, I got this nut off of here and I pulled the bushing off, and as you know, there's different size bushings to control the amount of the curve. So this bushing slides on this shaft, and this limits how far this can turn back and forth. But what we're going to do is we're going to move this around and put the stud through this small hole, which locks out the timing. then the timing can't move, it's locked out. That's how, and so all I have to do is put the washer and the nut back on here, and it's ready to go. Okay, I've got the nut on and snugged down, so the timing is locked out. I've slid the gear back on and knocked in the roll pin. It's ready to go back in the car. Okay, we've got the distributor stab back in it. It's obviously locked out now. I gotta pop the cap on it and we'll fire it up. Okay, it's ready to start. Okay, the distributor's tightened back down so it won't move anymore. I hooked the vacuum advance back up. Make sure you have the vacuum advance unhooked when you're checking timing, obviously, for initial and total. It's hooked back up. I got the auto mixture set into the mid-13s. Carbureted cars, I shoot for mid-13s for air-fuel ratio typically. Anything much leaner than that's usually too lean for a carbureted combination. So we're gonna go drive it and see what we've got for cruise air fuel, and then come back and jet it if we need to. Okay, we just got back from a test drive. Cruise air fuel ratio was anywhere from low 13s to like 14.0, depending on what RPM you're at and how much you're lugging the motor. So I'm gonna leave that alone. It's got a lean tip in. When you're cruising along and you crack the throttle, it goes way lean before the power valve opens. So this, I'm sure it's got a 6.5 power valve. I'm gonna go up to a 10.5 power valve, so it will open sooner and cover up that lean spot. Most people don't know how to pick a power valve. That's how you pick a power valve. You want to be able to cruise along clean and lean. You crack the throttle to like pass the car, it needs to richen up and cover up that lean spot, because when you crack the throttle blades open, it will go lean for a split second. So that's what a power valve is for. I'm going to install a 10.5. It will open way sooner and cover up that spot. At wide open throttle, the air fuel ratio is like in the mid to low 13s, which is a little bit lean to me. I like to shoot for mid 12s, so I'm going to pull the rear float bowls off, go up like 2 jet numbers, and install a power valve and go drive it again. Okay, got the 10.5 power valve installed in the primaries. Changed the rear jets from 80s to 82s. We'll go test drive this thing and see what it does. Just got back from the final test drive. I ended up going from 82 to 84 jets in the primaries to get the air fuel ratio into the high 12s, 13.0 range at wide open throttle. I also went to a bigger squirter. It had 31s in it. I went to 40s to fix a lean stumble when you mat it really hard. So that's fixed. Cruise air fuel ratio is in the mid-13s. Starts and idle's good. Now back to the initial timing at idle. I've got this thing locked out. So going back to figuring out what you want for timing at idle, if the thing starts good hot, doesn't crank hard, then that's what it wants. Now if the thing cranks hard, you have to back the timing up till it cranks good, and say it's 25 degrees, you have to curve the distributor till it's got 25 degrees at idle, and it's got the 36 total that you want. So then it's changing those bushings in that distributor or welding up the slot to limit the travel or whatever it takes to get it to where you want. But that's what's involved in getting it, the initial timing where you want to be at. So if this motor would have had less camshaft or more compression, it would not have wanted as much timing at idle, so I wouldn't have been able to lock it out, but this thing's happy with it. So it's good to go.